Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Stories from Real Life. I'm your host, Melvin E. Edwards. Thanks for joining me for the podcast where personal stories can have a global impact. As you heard in the intro, my guest today is Fred Simpson. Fred is also known under the pen name of Jameson Lion. Fred, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melvin. I'm glad to be here.
In this episode, we're going to discuss online scams and vulnerable adults. Fred worked in construction for 50 years, so he didn't really have much time for hanging around on social media sites. However, when his wife of 46 years died, things changed dramatically for him. First of all, Fred, how are you doing today? And I'm sorry about your loss.
I'm doing fine today. Today is a brand new day, and last year was not so good, as you said. I lost my wife and went through some grief issues, and fortunately, I've been 34 years clean and sober, and I was able to maintain that. But I got through construction and kind of into retirement, and my loss happened, and I decided to look for old schoolmates and old friends and family, and got on social network and found them, and that was good. That was very positive, and reconnect with them after it would take about 35-45 minutes on the average to connect with those people, and but the downside of it, I found out about 35% have passed away, whether old age or other means. But still, the plus side is to make those contacts, and then also nieces, nephews, and others that were on social media, and got a hold of them and passed on information as far as my success in finding the right tools to tackle grief, and basically paralleled the resolution being the same kind of resolution that I found in AA, and finding God to help me. He was carrying me, found out. So that was good, and a very good thing. But all that positive happened and went along, and I went into the other portion of social media. The other portion of social media being the other platforms that are there, like Zangy, Telegram, Signal, Messenger of Facebook, Instagram, and Google Chat. And also found out that once I was there, found other people, whether they were real or bad players, they were there. And, I basically was susceptible, and I lost some money to scammers, the romance scams, and come to realize that what was going on, and about that time, I decided, well, somebody needs to give other people the tools, and the tools to recognize when somebody was scamming them, recognize when it was a bad player and they were just trying to get money for their own edification, and not necessarily to help them out. And but at that point, I realized, hey, I'm going to write a book. At the age of 69, decided I'm going to write a book and come up and pass on the tools. With cyber time is what I called it, and then went through this process of learning to write a book.
Your goal was to reconnect with old family and friends, and as you mentioned, something entirely different happened. How long did it take before you started going online until the scammers started coming after you?
Well, when I opened up, Facebook and Instagram were some, but not as prevalent as the rest of the social media platforms. And they pop up, and all of a sudden you're chatting with them, and then come to find out they're asking for money for this or that. And, it was relatively quick. And then once the scam happened and things went out, I decided I'm going to write about it. Then that's when it came about. I found out the different steps and the different tools, and that's what I show in my book. Is there's 10 steps to finding out if there's a real person there, but most of it is doing a video call. Yeah, video call on any of the social media platforms, or like here, it's very easy to tell whether they're AI or they're false, or they come up with excuses why their camera doesn't work, like they dropped it, and all this stuff. When that happens, it's time to block them and report them. And but there's all these different platforms. You got to understand there's different capabilities and different methods they can use. Really, the only ones that have uh, you know they look after and monitor is Facebook and Instagram, and some of the others are very little. But Zangy itself has nobody monitoring, so you can report it, but it isn't reporting to anybody. And just to understand the difference, and it's all Wi-Fi generated, so there's really not a cell signal that's necessary. You can make calls across the world, and actually probably did. There's probably the scammers and stuff that or hackers that may be sitting in China or Ghana or Nigeria or just about anywhere. And but I took the opportunity to find out who was real and who was not, and be able to pass on along in the book the real stats, the statistics of what it is. And it's amazing. I mean, you can hear what you want from the other platforms. I mean, they're going to paint a better picture, but basically, Facebook and Instagram and Facebook are about 50% real, 50% scammers. The worst one to stay away from is Zangy, is about 73% scammers, and 27% real. But knowing all that, and actually the best thing to do, and what I've done is unplugged from the rest of those sites and stay on only the sites like LinkedIn, uh, Facebook, and Instagram, where I've got my book marketing, and be able to connect on it.
All right, what kind of scams were they? Were they all seeking money?
Oh no, no, you've got the romance scams and you got the finance scams and all the other different ones, and where they're going to try to get more money involve crypto, the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and another one called gold short trading. And that's where they'll make a lot more money than just whether you buy them a phone, a new phone, or a computer, or whatever they're asking for, rent, or any of that. Bitcoins and the rest of that can be up in the thousands, up into tens of thousands. Just get involved on a fake platform, and you're investing, and that's what they want you to do, is invest. And there's a lot of methods to that, and what's opened up a lot and found out is AI. They can emulate the voice and video portions, and someone you think you know and their voice that you know is actually trying to sell you cryptocurrency and Bitcoin investment. And I've just lately, within the last 2 3 weeks, I've had uh, 2 to 3 people that have mentioned to me they've had their sites pirated, and their pictures taken or videos, and then they've taken that and re-imaged and sent it out as selling cryptocurrency, bitcoins, and investment in gold. There's it's just AI is getting scary, very scary on the capabilities. I mean, it's it's got a variety of things, and it's going to help us out immensely in the world. But the downside is it can help out the scammers too and hackers immensely. So really need to be very careful on what you go about.
So, how much money do you think you lost in these games?
Well, I lost about $50,000 until I came to the realization that these were all bad players, or majority of them were, and to the percentage that I told you. The rest of it is if anybody's asking for money or any investment, don't do it. Unless you see them face to face and deal with them that way, it isn't worth trying to decipher whether they're real or not. And like I said in my book, I've got 10 steps to validate the reality of who you're talking about. The number one being video calls. Number two is an audio call, and then also verify their address. And it goes down through there, and other people they may know, and acquaintances, and get their their emails or any of that. All these steps that if you want to stay there, but then back again is don't go there. I say, if you got to spend at least a couple seconds and think about something somebody's asking you, then it's very likely not right, and they're trying to get money from you. And there's just like I say, the variety of scams out there never cease to amaze me. I mean, there's people out there that'll take anything or use anything against you. And also heard from a couple of people just recently. It's not just the social media; it's also phones and people, using voice emulation and stuff like that, and trying to get people to think that they're uh, they're actually grandkids or kids of theirs that are in trouble, and send money, and a lot of times they will. I mean, because it's a family member, and they really want to help, but it isn't correct. And most of the time, you need to contact that family member or another one to see if that's real or not. But
All right.
yeah, there's tons of different scams.
All right, your book is called Cyber Time. Can you tell us about the process of writing the book and and the 10 steps that you mentioned earlier?
Well, writing the book is that's a whole new story in itself. As far as writing the book, finding a publicist, and then getting from that publicist, you settle on a lump sum price to get uh, ghostwriters, you get project manager, you get sales, you get marketing people, and for a lump sum. And once that's turned over and they send to publishers, and I sent a contract for 40 different publishers to be on market. Currently, I'm on 84 different platforms, besides the main ones, Amazon, Walmart, Books a Million, Books, Barnes and Noble, just so many to figure out. And then the global ones are something else. I mean, in Korea, in Chinese, in Germany, England, UK, Australia. I mean, there's all sorts of other platforms to get published on. So it's really been something else. And at this point, I've got ebook, I've got paperback, and I've got hardcover, and in the process of doing an Audible book and choosing the right voice and get that done and get it out there because there's another market for that, a totally different market that a lot of people like to listen to books while they're driving, and a lot of people driving, and truck drivers and everything else. So the other thing is to get into and get on, uh, you book reading sites, book clubs. Some of them have up to 500,000 to 1 million uh, personnel on those sites, and that's good marketing. And then, of course, like this, Melvin, yourself, and other podcasts that can get the marketing out there, because that's the whole thing is marketing. You can have them published and available on these sites, but unless people know it and can read about it and be able to see it, then you're back into exactly what problem I developed as being on a social media page, and you're trying to market on that same page. So it's kind of a catch-22 there, but I can I can laugh about it and at least say, hey, I started writing, and the whole length of the process is I started in May of last year, and the first publishing that was done was actually New Year's Day of this year. So basically about 7 months, and went from an idea to a book. And none of this was also done, none of it was done on AI. It was not, none of the narrative or any of that was generated on AI. And the thing for people to understand is there's a lot of difference that how they sell it, and actually as you go in and get your copyright, because I've got my copyright, and there's only one place you get a copyright, and that's with copyright.go, and I've got mine to help protect it. So like I say, there's a lot of things to learn, and that was uh, that was a heck of a learning process. At this point, if I decide to do another one, it won't be so bad. But
So, how do
it's
scammers
been,
exploit people who are grieving?
oh, and Melvin, it isn't just one at a time. You're dealing with and what you dig into and you find out, and I've found it out even from the scammers themselves, is there's groups that get on the site, and there's groups that look at certain scams where they get more money and take advantage of that. And I found there were 7 of them at a motel in Kansas City that were on the same Zangy site, and were targeting people to on variety of scams and using AI and AI generated videos, and it was amazing. And myself, no, I was curious, and curious to the extent of saying, well, how prevalent is AI? Because when I first started writing my book, you could hear somebody do an AI video, and it was just monotone and really jerky as far as the video portion. Now, I just recently I got before I completed the book, I did a program and the software and downloaded it and just try it out. And within 15 minutes, that video was an AI bot and a form, and you could teach them language and how to respond and had this happening within 15 minutes. And that further scared me to the point where I erased it off my computer, because I said, just think the further advancements people have for going over and above with generating videos is amazing.
So, what do people over 50 need to know about online safety?
Well, there's two schools here. You can say, well, I don't know about it. Why should I even think about it? Why should I even read about it? And my comment was, and I did it to a friend that just had that same conversation last week, and say, well, if you don't know about it, how do you know when you're getting scammed? And I said, you need at least to understand what's happening, to have the tools to keep from it happening to you. Because it isn't just internet, it's phones. And like I said before, it's phones and everything else, even letters and mail, that you got to understand that, hey, there's certain companies and certain individuals that aren't going to contact you that way. So the more information you have and the more tools you have, the better armed you are against it. That's that's my conveyance to anybody that asks. Well, don't just stick your head in the sand like an ostrich. Is to understand what's going on. It was even here. I'll give you an example, Melvin. There was a person I knew that I went and I gave them a copy of my book, and they said, "Okay, I'm glad," because and this is what happened. They had their account hacked with Facebook and or Instagram, and their video and pictures taken, and AI, you know, taken it and transferred it and transformed it into actually an ad where they were asking people to invest in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And they said, well, and naturally, I tried to get on my account that was hacked and tried to get it reinstated and wiped out and new one put. So they called a Facebook person or who they thought it was, and it was not. And the person was telling them to send a money card, and also telling them to turn off their computer, and then they would remote and fix it for them. Oh yeah, they were going to fix it all right. Is once you get on somebody's computer, and unfortunately, this day and age, everything you've got electronic computers, phones, smartphones. There's banking information. There's all personal information that is in their hands, and they can you know basically take over your life and your accounts. So like I said before too, Melvin, is if you got to think about it, don't do it. you know, Either hang up or block it or turn it off, because it isn't right. It isn't right,
Why do apps seem harmless but often are not?
right? They you're in on something that you think is going to be good, and it turns around. That's what they want you to think, like the Trojan horse and all that stuff. I mean, there's so many things out there. It's just like, for instance, even today they've got Cellcom in Green Bay, Wisconsin. My sister's at. They've been without service since Wednesday night, and we're talking about emergency services and stuff like that. And if people are doing ransomware, that's probably what it is more like, because they can fix any hardware stuff quickly. And they aren't really saying anything right now, so that's probably it. But that's what can happen, and that happens from country to country, and a lot of times that's big money, very big money, and could be just terrorists. It's so many things you can get into.
So, how did unplugging become part of your healing process?
Is you realize, well, I shouldn't be here, so if to get away from it is delete it from your phone or your computer, and don't go there. It's everything, and the process is that I've gone back uh, to church, and I've gone back to AA meetings, and the whole thing is, and what I've found is more realistic. And realistic in dealing with people is communicating face to face, and that way, not doing a false narrative or whatever, and being on the internet and texting. I mean, I'm old school when it comes to texting. Man, it's just murder. And when you can actually talk to people and get so much information done just over verbal and having discussions, that is that's the way to go. And part of what I put in the book also, Melvin, is the psychology and the psychiatry of social media, and what impacts it's having on our younger adults, older, all adults, but even the youngest are more susceptible, and how much time is spent on there. If you're over an hour and 15 minutes a day, then it impacts your outlook on how you address things, and how positive you are or negative on the other side. And exactly what it does, it changes your persona and how you react with people. Because if you've got text and chatting is all you're doing, then you can actually change who you are. And there's a lot of young adults that don't even want to talk on the phone. They'd rather just chat. And we're getting away from that, and it's changing their whole character. And that's in my book. That's one chapter itself, is just the changes that are happening. And I'm glad to see some of the states like Florida, they've started, restricting ages on social media and social networking. So, it's just like, video games and the violence that's there. It's also social media and what they get into. And it really has a lot of change. And the more you stay away from it, the better you are. And if you stay away from it, then you're more likely to interact face to face with people. And that's what you need to do, in my extent.
All right, that's some good advice. But what final bit of advice would you like to leave for the listeners today?
Is just looking at being closer to people, and ones you love, ones you know, and anybody you do meet that is real, and everything is practice just being kind. Kindness is what we're losing in this world. A lot of random act of kindness and directed acts of kindness, which I like to think is, we take that effort and, like, giving to people that don't have, and charities, and those kind of things. That's where we need to be, not socially interacting on the internet. That's uh, is wrong narrative. That's what I think, Melvin.
All right. And as a final question today, where can listeners get a copy of your book, Cyber Time?
Cyber Time is on, I'd say, the three key uh, platforms and areas to get it. It's Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. It's available just about everywhere you want to get to. It's on Apple, only in ebook form. All the platforms, like I said, Barnes and Noble and Amazon have all three: uh, uh, the ebook, the paperback, and the hardcover. And they
Okay.
start at $9.99 per ebook, $18.99 for paperback, and $24.99 for hardcover.
All right. Sounds good. So our guest today has been retired construction worker and author of Cyber Time, Fred Simpson. Fred, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Melvin.
Please go to my website at podcastreallife.com for more information about my guest and the things we discussed today, including a link to his book. That's it for today's episode of Stories from Real Life. Join us again next time for another chance to learn from each other. Until then, don't forget to shine your light wherever you go.